I have been reading through the life of Christ, and we're working through a harmony of the Gospels, and we're up to the point where Jesus foretells that he is the Messiah, and he also talks about his how he'll be rejected, his death, and how he'll rise again the third day. So we're seeing a wonderful prediction here of the good news or the gospel that Jesus himself announces. So I'm reading from Mark chapter 8, verses 31 to 37. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days to rise again. And he spake the saying openly. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But he, turning about and seeing his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, Get behind me, Satan, for you are not minding the things of God, but the things of men. And he called unto him the multitude with his disciples and said unto them, If any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel shall save it. For what profit does it give to a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? For what should a man give in exchange for his soul or his life? Here Jesus is clearly talking to Peter, and when he talks about how he would be rejected and put to death, in 3 days he would rise again, Peter rebukes him and says, No, that can't be, Lord. And Jesus then rebukes Peter and says, Get behind me, Satan. In other words, what you're saying is not, you're trying to put an end to what I have been called to do. And then he goes, there is that discussion in Mark then about taking up one's cross and following Jesus. For the one who loses his life will save it, and the one who seeks to save it will lose it. Jesus sets an example too, according to Mark, that believers should follow in serving others as Peter or as Jesus has done. Then in Matthew, it reads, Matthew 16:21 to 26. From that time began Jesus to show his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from you, Lord, this shall never be unto you. But he turned, and he said unto Peter, Get behind me, Satan, you are a stumbling block unto me, for you are thinking not the things of God, but the things of men. Then Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever would save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what shall a man be profited if he shall gain the whole world and forfeit his life? And what shall a man give in exchange for his life or soul? Notice Matthew says pretty much the same thing that we read in Mark, that Jesus has announced very clearly about his coming, death, and resurrection. And Peter is saying, no, again, Lord, that can't happen. And Jesus speaks of Peter as putting a stumbling block up before him. And then Jesus goes on to talk about one who follows me must lose his life and follow me in so doing. And then we have Luke 9:22 to 25. But he charged them and commanded them to tell this to no man, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and the third day be raised up. Notice again, Luke gives a clear repetition of what Jesus taught about his death and resurrection. So he's predicting this before it happens over and over again. And Luke then continues, and he said unto all, if any man should come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whosoever would save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. Same truth being reiterated by Luke. For what is a man profited if he gain the whole world and lose or forfeit his own soul? And how, as we think about how true that is, as we think about the world and today, what a lot of people live for is making all the money they can make and becoming as rich as they can become. And yet Jesus is teaching something different. He's simply saying, what does it profit a man if he would gain the whole world and yet lose his own soul? So the most important thing is to follow Christ and take up one's cross and become his disciple, is what Jesus is saying in these wonderful passages in the harmony of the Gospels.